Xenodiplomacy by Mark Arnold. Chapter 1. I squeezed my eyes shut, gritted my teeth, leaned forward, and waited for the bomb in my head to explode. Of course, this would kill everyone in the room, including me. I can't say I thought much of the idea, and I'm sure the superintendent, that's the Empire's representative on Earth and the intended target, wouldn't have been impressed if he had known. I was... what is the term? Ah, yes, collateral damage. That sounds nice and sanitary until you realize it entails the contents of your head becoming interior decoration. It also means I was of no importance whatsoever. I just happened to be in the way of the main objective, as it were. Well, not even in the way. More like in the wrong place at the wrong time, really. You'll never guess what was going through my mind seconds before imminent death. I was thinking of my father. Before I joined the Foreign Office, he said to me, "Andrew, you're an idiot and a fool, and not good for anything, so you may as well get a government position." My father was a very humorous man, as you can see. He would often call me an idiot, cretin, moron, boob, thickhead. Oh, the list goes on. Laugh? We would laugh for hours on end at the imaginative terms he'd devise to describe me. Of course, this was all in jest, for giggle as it were. I must admit, now that I come to think of it, I was the only one laughing at these gatherings. Father would just scowl at me from under his bushy eyebrows, rustle his paper, and clear his throat. Mother would lower her head and continue reading her book. My sister would smirk, but it could have been indigestion. She had a tricky stomach. 2 hours earlier, I was a happy, industrious member of the Canadian Embassy in Iceland. A bright future lay before me until the ambassador summoned me to his office. "Are you in the Resistance, Maybridge?" Ambassador Pompous demanded. When I heard the ambassador ask me about the Resistance, you could have knocked me down with a... well, the word escapes me, but you could have knocked me down with a very light object. I dreamed of being in the Resistance. All the cloak and dagger, danger, the excitement, the shady ladies. I've seen the movies and read the books. It was the same reason I joined the diplomatic corps, and it was the only employment I could find. "Answer me!" the ambassador shouted. I blinked with surprise at the ambassador's terse tone. A slight flutter of the lids, I assure you. Nothing more. "And stop blinking like some bloody owl," the ambassador barked. "Now, are you in the resistance movement dedicated to the overthrow of the alien empire that rules the earth?" It was a bit expository, I thought, but you don't get to be an ambassador without making yourself understood. "Me? In the resistance?" I sputtered. "Gosh, no, sir, Mr. Ambassador. I'm not in the resistance." I should mention the presence of Ian Roth, head of embassy security, did not aid my state of nerves one bit. He was a huge man, packed with dense, heavy muscle impossible to hide beneath his ill-fitting suit. I once offered the services of my tailor to help him disguise those burly nuts beneath his skin, and received a rather rude reply in return for my trouble. "Gosh," the ambassador said. "Does anyone say gosh anymore? Has anyone said gosh since the 20th century?" He squinted at me as if he were studying something nasty he had stepped in. "Roth, is Maybridge that good or that bad an actor?" "Hard to say, sir," Roth said in the deep bass mixed with gravel voice of his. He studied a tablet in his thick, calloused hands. "Andrew Matthew Maybridge," he read. 32 years old, last May. 5 feet 11.5 inches. "I'm 6 feet," I corrected, straightening up in the chair Roth had shoved me into when he'd brought me into the ambassador's office. Roth looked at me through hooded eyes for a brief moment. I wasn't making any friends there, I thought. Roth returned to his tablet. Weight, 196 pounds. I grunted, decided not to correct him this time. I'm a trim 165. Oh, I may have diverted from my usual dietary routine from time to time, and it had been a while since I'd availed myself of the embassy gym, but I haven't deviated from my prime weight since I left university 7 years ago. I did have the tailor let out my suits, but I hasten to add the dry cleaners kept shrinking them. Roth continued, mousy brown hair and washed-out blue eyes. My hair is chestnut and my eyes a steel gray. Degree in political science from Oxford. Roth's face showed his surprise. I can't see why. I earned my degree by intensive study and damned hard work. Roth's face showed his surprise. I can't see why. I earned my degree by intensive study and damned hard work. That my father paid for the university's new library while I was a student was simply a coincidence. Joined the Foreign Office 6 years ago. Varied postings in some lesser countries, and then here 2 months ago. Always stationed a level lower, and remained no longer than 6 months in any single location. Every manager has had the same complaint. Too eager. The ambassador nodded in agreement. You've been constantly emailing me suggestions for improvements from the types of flowers to be planted on the embassy grounds to political policy. Oh, not constantly, sir, I said. You've sent over 200 emails since you arrived. I grew concerned by the color of the ambassador's face. Magenta couldn't be a healthy hue in a man of his advanced years. You don't seem to get it, the ambassador said. You are assistant to the head of housekeeping and grounds maintenance. You're not a mover or a decision-maker. You are responsible for keeping the toilets clean. I'll admit my office washroom has never been so spotless. It sparkles. Thank you, sir, I said proudly, but I can't take all the credit. Staff do a wonderful job as long as I keep a hand in. The ambassador leaned back in his chair. You do a good job, Maybridge, perhaps a little too good. He addressed Roth as if I wasn't in the room, which is hard to do when a 165-pound, 6-foot man is sitting not a yard away. Could he be a plant? Roth considered the ambassador's words by eyeing me coldly. Ottawa isn't above sending in covert agents to keep an eye on embassy personnel. But to hear, the ambassador said. We're in Iceland, for God's sake. This is the end of the diplomatic world. This is where careers come to die. This is as far away from the action as you can get and still be on the planet. Look at me. I had a very promising career until my little peccadillo with the actress. Oh, everyone laughed and said it wasn't important, treated it like a joke, but that was the end of the plum postings. I slipped down the diplomatic ladder until I found myself here. I've been abandoned. The ambassador grew quiet, looking inward, I thought, probably thinking of all his great hopes and plans and seeing them dashed to the ground and trampled when the news agencies published the pictures of the actress coming out of his office at 3 a.m. I forget her name. She was in that film where she played a character who fell in love with a man who had been a dachshund in a previous life. You know the one. She received some kind of award for the role. Perhaps if she'd been carrying the award when she left his office, things might have turned out better. The result was that the ambassador's wife left him and he ended up at the Canadian Embassy in Iceland. I seem to remember the actress made a sequel to the Dachshund film, but it didn't do very well. I rather liked it. Very poignant, I thought. Especially that bit when she caught her love interest wolfing down a box of dog biscuits. That was acting. If they ever put an embassy on the moon, they'll station us both there, Maybridge, the ambassador said rather sadly. Ah, I thought, we have established a rapport. Now is the time to mend bridges. Mr. Ambassador, I said, I feel we have, at last, made a connection, an understanding, a meeting of the minds, as it were. But that was as far as I got. The ambassador turned to Roth. Shut him up. Roth nodded and consulted his tablet again. Genuine, jelly, pig, bladder, overshoes, plaid, he intoned. The words died in my mouth as my head twitched in reaction to the code words activating the implanted programming in my brain. Since the middle of the century, members of all branches of government service receive a variety of programming securing their nation from spying, theft, sabotage, and, well, all kinds of nastiness that people get up to. It's a sad state of affairs when a government can't trust its own people. In addition, it hurts like the devil when they turn on the program. This particular group of non-related words, almost impossible to duplicate by accident, activated the standby program. Shut up and wait for orders is what I call it. Until Roth spoke a release code, I would be unable to move of my own accord. Not long after I had submitted to the programming, during my training courses, someone had discovered my standby code, and for several weeks I was the subject of practical jokers who thought it was amusing to waylay me in the hallways and leave me motionless for hours on end. While you are immobile, you do think. Boy, do I have to go to the washroom, is a common thought after 12 hours. Thank you, Ambassador Pompous said, kneading both sides of his temples with his fingers. His blathering was giving me a headache. He motioned to Roth with his hand. Let's get on with it. There isn't much time. Render, venison, blackjack, rice, wombat, purple, Roth said. My head twitched again as pain lashed through my skull. The truth program. For the duration of the session, I would be unable to lie. Not that I would lie anyway. I like to think of myself as a gentleman and a patriot. Besides, I'm not very good at lying. You have to remember all the details. The truth is much easier to remember, and you don't have to make anything up. I'm afraid I lack a certain creative imagination for that sort of thing. Simple-minded was how my father put it. Let's try this again, the ambassador said. Do you deny being a member of the Resistance? Yes, I do deny it. Sir, I don't know what you've been told, but I assure you I have nothing to do with the Resistance. Not that I disagree with their goals. Why aren't you part of the Resistance, then? Roth said. I shrugged. Well, inwardly, I was still under the constraints of the program. Because I'm nobody, I said. Christ, I'm in charge of the janitors. I have nothing to offer the Resistance, either by position or ability. That was strange, I thought. Where did that come from? I've never considered myself as worthless as I had stated. On the other hand, had I? Have I been concealing the truth from myself? Nonsense. I was a thoughtful, intelligent, enterprising, and headed to the top of my field. I had a focus on my life goals, and nothing would get in my way or divert me from my path. My powers of concentration were impressive. I really had to go to the washroom. What do you think, Roth? The ambassador said. Roth shrugged his massive shoulders. It could be an act. Maybe he's under deep cover with overriding software in his head. There's no way to know in the time we have. Excuse me, sir, what is this about? Ambassador Pompous eyed me with anger and fear. I have received an order for your transfer effective immediately. To where, sir? A shuttle will be arriving within the hour, and you are to report to the superintendent at exactly 2:30 Icelandic time. I felt my mouth go dry, did my owl impersonation again, and waited for my brain to process the information. The superintendent? Pompous nodded. Yes. The representative of the Galactic Empire on Earth? Yes. He wants to see me? Yes. Why? I cried. My stomach seemed to fill with ice. That's what we'd like to know, said Roth. The ambassador looked at his watch. Well, no time left. You have to get going now if you're to meet the shuttle. Mr. Roth will escort you to the rendezvous. It was lovely having you with us. Roth read out the deactivation codes. I felt the programs release me from their hold, and my mind and body relaxed. Roth stalked around the desk, slipped a hard-knuckle hand under my armpit, and lifted me to my feet as if I were weightless. My head was so muddled, I allowed myself to be ushered out of the office without uttering a word. I could have sworn as the door closed, I heard the ambassador humming happily to himself. I think it was the theme from the Dachshund movie. We headed down to the basement garage, and Roth manipulated me into the back of a limousine. For my first trip in a limo, I have to say it wasn't pleasant. I'd always imagined there would be chilled champagne, caviar on ticks of toast, exotic women, and a mysterious stranger, possibly wearing an eye patch. Instead, there was me, Roth, and the chauffeur. Not an eye patch in the bunch. A most disappointing first-time experience. Drive, Roth ordered, and flipped a switch, raising a window between the chauffeur and us. The limo exited the garage and hit the streets of Reykjavik. Roth opened a panel by his arm and extracted a small black leather pouch. Suffering, trout, mayonnaise, grovel, watches, blue, he said. My head twitched with that. I'm being electrocuted, snapping I was getting seriously tired of. Smiling, Roth opened the pouch. Now we can talk. I'm sorry, I said. I haven't a clue what any of this is about. I know, said Roth, withdrawing two cylindrical objects from the pouch. What is that? I asked, knowing the answer wasn't going to make me want to sing with joy. Roth held up the cylinders in each hand. These? I suppose it's safe to tell you. You see, I know you aren't in the Resistance, because I am. Hold out your hands, please. I held out my hands. I couldn't stop myself. Roth must have seen my eyes grow wide with surprise and fear. A grin appeared on his face. He looked like a hungry wolf eyeing a fat sheep. I had to say, these installed government programs in my brain were becoming most bothersome. I love these mind implants, Roth said as he twisted my arms, turning the wrists up. This one allows me to control all your actions on command. For instance, you will not tell anyone what transpires in this limousine under any circumstances. You are to be calm and relaxed. What are you going to do? I asked. There was a faint quaver in my voice, but I could feel myself settling down. I felt warm and cozy. You said to the ambassador that you agreed with the goals of the Resistance, yes? You want Earth to be free from under the yoke of the alien tyranny, yes? You sounded like a bad spy movie. I nodded. Yes, I do. Mankind should be free. Good, Roth said. These are hypodermics. The concoction they contain came out of our Shanghai branch of the Resistance. He injected my right wrist and then the left. The two chemicals will make their way into your brain, combine, and at 2:35, when you're meeting with the superintendent, your head will explode, killing everyone in the room. Won't I die if my head explodes? I said. I'm quite sure I need my head. I keep my brain in it. Roth laughed. Oh, a small price to pay for such a grand gesture against the Empire. He looked me over and nodded. Yes, a very small price. I know, it won't free the world, but it sends a message, and that's important. I want you to feel proud of your contribution. I did feel proud. I felt a great enthusiasm at the thought of giving up my life for something so much greater than I was. Damn these implants! It was as if I were of two minds. One part of me followed the instructions implicitly. The other part, hiding deep down in the back of my head, watched impotently, silently screaming for me to get the hell out of the limousine and run for my life. Unfortunately, it wasn't in charge of my limbs. What if I don't keep the appointment? I asked. Roth shrugged. Then you'll die for no good reason at all. At least make your death worth something, Maybridge. But there must be, I stammered. There's no magic potion that will deactivate the explosive, Roth said. It's going to happen no matter what you do. You made a bomb you can't turn off? Well, I'm sure they're working on it somewhere. I felt sweat break out on my forehead and glanced out of the limousine's window and stared at the mountains. Why have you done this to me? Roth shrugged. You were convenient. We've been waiting for an opportunity to present itself. This will be an impressive strike at the Empire. He locked eyes onto me and smiled. You are going to be a worldwide hero, a self-sacrificing example of the power, the might, and the will of the whole human race against these cursed alien invaders. What am I supposed to do? Nothing at all. Just keep your appointment. Oh, and at 2:35? It would be helpful if you could lean in close to the superintendent. The limo came to a halt at the shore of Faxafloy Bay. Roth returned the syringes back to the pouch and tucked the pouch into the inside pocket of his ill-fitting jacket. Maybridge, now listen to me, he ordered. You will not tell anyone of the bomb in your head. You will be calm and relaxed for your meeting with the superintendent. You will not reveal I am in the Resistance. In fact, you will forget I exist. Roth patted me on the shoulder. I'd tell you to forget you have a bomb in your head, but where would be the fun in that? He looked out the window. Ah, your ride is here. The chauffeur opened the door for me. I got out and looked across the bay. The Empire shuttle moved slowly over the water and came to a halt at the beach. The thing was fantastically enormous, maybe half a mile long, and it was just a shuttle. I felt very small. But then I remembered my mission. I was to be a symbol of mankind's refusal to submit to these evil invaders. The shuttle hovered several feet above the beach. A hatch irised open and a ramp lowered out onto the sand. I nodded to the chauffeur and strode away. I started to look back to say goodbye to... Who was I going to say goodbye to? I'd come alone. Strange. You'd have thought someone would have escorted me on such an important mission. I moved up the ramp and entered the shuttle. Feather! That was the word I couldn't remember earlier. End of Chapter 1.